Hi, I'm Shaka Hislop, and you're here at Extra Time TV.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very random and important EXCV episode. We had some really sad news as fans of the West Indies. I was just doing my work, scrolling through my feed, and I saw that West Indies they have failed to qualify for the ODI World Cup for the first time, losing to Scotland. And of course, you all know primarily we're a football show, but we're a sports show. And of course, I'll have to speak to somebody who knows about what they're talking about. The one, the only, Sachin Ramsubagh is here today. Sachin, we spoke to each other immediately after this. What are your immediate thoughts on this?
Andre, thanks very much for having me on the show. Automatically, let's just say, as a passionate West Indian fan for many years, since I was in primary school and I knew how to hold a cricket bat and how to grip a ball, we were West Indian fans ever since. But seeing this happening and knowing the downward spiral of West Indies cricket over the last 15 to 20 years, maybe some people may consider it beyond that. I think it's surprising to some, but alarming to others that we will not be playing in the World Cup for the first time since its inception.
Wow.
Since the One Day International World Cups came about in the 1970s, the West Indies won the first two editions. Now seeing this happen, and then everybody knew about the West Indian struggles for the last 2 or 3 decades, since I would say since the early 1990s to now. We've had some periods of greatness. The World Cup, the two T20 World Cups, the under 19 team doing well in their World Cup as well. We did a treble in that year with the women doing fantastic as well. So I think that was the period of play, the period of cricket in the Caribbean that everybody thought, hey, the West Indies team is now finally turning the corner. We've heard that term used so much. The West Indies team turning the corner. But unfortunately, that corner seems to be one of those corners like in Maracas, where the corners never end.
Yes. I've been hearing this a long time. Everybody knows that primarily I'm a football fan, but I'm a Trinidad and Tobago person. No Trini does not like or relate to the West Indies, in any way or form. When I was younger, I would wear my hats because I would try to be like, Richie Richardson. I tried to bowl like Curtly Ambrose, to the annoyance of my friends. And, I was there, unfortunately, old enough to know the original great era we had. And then I saw the downfall, and then I saw the rise again, around that time with the World Cups and so on. And as you rightfully said, I keep hearing from experts like yourself and others that, the concerns about West Indies cricket, about, the politics and selection issues and so on. And the first thing I'll address, and we'll go backwards, the usual knee-jerk reaction is, let's fire the coach.
Of course.
Yeah, that's sometimes in all sports, that's a thing. Do you think, I noticed that there's a bigger problem, and you highlighted this in one of your videos, folks. Check that out. It's very insightful, sound Sachin. I think it's on your Facebook page. Check that out. But okay, so the initial reaction is, this is horrible. We're not going to go to the World Cup. We have on paper, according to a lot of people, some really great players, they perform, and you could debate this if you want, but the initial reaction to fire the coach and get rid of him, is he the one to blame for this?
I don't think so, because a lot of people and a lot of people are echoing the same sentiments that the coach and the management team needs to go. But remember that they were put in place just maybe about a month ago. So I don't think it's enough and ample time for the coaching staff to work with the team to see if they can get better results. I don't think in any sport, Andre, even in football and in hockey, it doesn't matter what sport it is. If you give a coaching team 1 month to work with a team, I don't think the turnover is going to expect it to be that great. So some people are saying, it's time to sack Darren Sammy, time to sack the directors of cricket, get rid of all the players. Let's bring in a whole new batch of players and try something, because nothing seems to work. My thing is, yes, I want to agree with some of the people that, hey, Darren Sammy may not be the best qualified person for the job, but he is certainly probably one of the most successful captains we've had in the last 20 years. He's an inspirational leader. He knows how to motivate a team when it's in its complete downward spiral. Some people are saying, well, then, if he can't motivate the team in this World Cup qualifiers, then that's it. It's done and dusted. And that brings about another discussion, Andre, about teams going by themselves, territories going by themselves. People pulling away from the actual total West Indian outfit and being their own territorial teams. Trinidad and Tobago by themselves, Guyana by themselves, Barbados, Jamaica, etc. Could this be a solution? I'm not sure, but I'll tell you this. In 2009, I think it was. I could be wrong with my dates, but back somewhere around that era, Trinidad and Tobago went to the Airtel Champions League in India. Now, back then, just like the UEFA Champions League, you would have some of the best clubs in the world coming together to play a tournament. Trinidad and Tobago went to play against some of the best club teams in the world, with some of the best players in the world as well. And they actually went to the final and almost gave the great Mumbai Indians a run for their money. Now, this is where Kyron Pollard, Samuel Badri, Sunil Narayan, Lyndell Simmons, Dinesh Ramdin to some extent, many of these players were born out of that competition. So now the question is, does Trinidad and Tobago and other similar territories have to go on their own? I think that's the question that a lot of people have been asking now over the last few hours. I don't think it's a bad discussion to have, but is it a pertinent discussion at this point? I think the real pertinent discussion is to find a quick solution to the abysmal and atrocious performance of the West Indies team.
Wow. Powerful words. I've heard that discussion many times, many times about, Trinidad and Tobago just going off on their own in the past. And maybe that's a separate discussion we could have, because I think that's a very interesting topic to speak about.
I think so.
Considering the talent we have and, in terms of selection and so on, even recently I saw Darren Ganger making some statements about selection issues. I've been hearing this for years. And to be fair, not just in cricket, but in, in general sports in Trinidad and Tobago, the political aspect, players that should be there, not being there. That fall, I should say, from when we had that success to now, what do you think is the main reason? And this might be a difficult question, but, we'll try to narrow it down. You think is the core reason why we haven't been able to replicate? And it seems like we're just going further and further down rather than progressing, because obviously there'll be a period of adjustment when a team does really well. You have to rebuild, just start a new cycle. But it seems as if we can't seem to restart and even, progress. It seems like we're almost going backwards. What do you think is the reason for that?
Andre, I think if you're doing the same things over and over and expecting a different result, that is the true definition of insanity. If you look at the Trinidad and Tobago setup and some of the other territorial teams as well, the developmental programs aren't really there. And I mean, the people in charge might argue with me for saying this point, but they're going to be saying that, hey, we have under 13, under 15, under 17 cricket, etc. But what do you have for the great raw talent that may come out of these tournaments and these zonal programs? What do you have for them? How can you put things in place for them to now harness that raw talent and now transition that raw talent into something that's extraordinary or even great? You look at the current setup of Trinidad and Tobago cricket. You have 2 T10 competitions that seems to be the pinnacle of many of these players coming up. Now, while this does provide some economical benefits to many of the people in Trinidad and Tobago, including concession stand owners and some of the players as well, it also showcases some of the talent that are not really recognized. Some of these talents actually go on to play CPL. So while it's a good platform for young players and players who were not recognized to launch themselves on, it's not and should not be a developmental platform, because it's not. If you want to play 50 over cricket and you are not excelling at 50 over cricket, Andre, then you need to play more 50 over cricket and focus your attention on the development of the total 50 over game. It's simple.
Right.
If you're doing SEA exams, right? And for the foreign viewers, that's the exam where you move from lower school to middle and upper school. And your mathematics is poor. Are you going to still be focusing on English language and science? No, you'll be focusing on mathematics.
Right.
And it's simple common sense. If your 50 over game is not going well, then you need to put things in place to have remedies and remedial programs for that 50 over format. That's the only way it's going to work. Additionally, I made the point on Facebook recently that politics in cricket is causing many great talents, many great talents, and I can speak for Trinidad and Tobago, to go through and fall through the cracks because you have players who are doing exceptionally well at the youth level, and then they fall through the cracks. Why? Because they don't get selected for the national team. Now, for every young player coming up, that seems to be their goal. And it is their goal and should be their goal, not just in cricket, but all sport, to represent their country at whichever level that they can. But if you're putting in the work, Andre, you're doing all your fitness work, you are consistent in your bowling and batting, you're consistent in showing up to practice, you are paying attention to your dietary needs, and you are trying your very best to get some sort of finances. And I made this point as well. Many of these players have the opportunity to take their family out of poverty if they are given the opportunity. They use their last bit of pennies to travel to practice and try their very best to make this national team. And they stand out among the others. But then comes along daddy or mommy who wants to hand out something special to the selector or promise something for the national team. And then here comes a certain player on the team or certain bulk of players on the team. And you wonder, how did this young man or this young woman get on this team when there are so many others performing well? It's unfortunate. And when this happens, Andre, then you have youngsters who are demotivated, who are facing this huge challenge in their life that they're saying to themselves, it doesn't make sense playing cricket, because if it's happening at this level, imagine what happens at the higher level.
Wow. You know, that's a very disturbing piece of information because, you know, common sense, just applying logic, you want your best players, and obviously this would be undermining our success. You know, it's a problem that plagues, you know, just not just cricket but other sports. And I guess it would make perfect sense. That's why we're getting the outcomes we're getting now. You know, it trickles up, you know, to the selection process, because I've read and saw many reputable people criticizing the selection process and, you know, our preparation and so on. And it's well documented that people have problems with the selection process and, you know, the overall way that West Indies does things. And, you know, even suggesting what you said earlier, just, you know, maybe it's just better if we become just a Trinidad and Tobago team and just let go of the history and start something new. But, you know, as you said, the immediate, you know, problem is, and, you know, front and center is that we did not make it to the World Cup, and then we performed, you know, obviously terribly over the last couple of years. What do they do now? How do they solve this problem? So I know you highlighted the corruption issues at the lower levels and so on, which probably trickles up. You know, as someone who, you know, is very versed in this area, what now? What now for the West Indies?
I am also asking that question, Andre, because
yeah,
I too, just like many of the other cricketing pundits, are searching for answers.
Mhm.
We have been searching for answers for many times. When the West Indies does poorly against Bangladesh and Sri Lanka and Afghanistan, who have gone through so many troubles of having a United States helping them to become a better country. They've been having so many uproars in their country and so many social disturbances, etc. We don't need to go into that. Everybody knows what happened in Afghanistan, the inhumane things that happened. But yet still, they have that passion and that pride to represent their country. A few years ago, they didn't have any money at all to purchase uniforms and airline tickets to get their team to the T20 World Cup. What happened? Two of their players, Rashid Khan and one of the other top players, utilized their earnings from franchise cricket around the world to purchase uniforms and purchase airline tickets to get their team to that very said T20 World Cup. Now, why am I making this point? The main objective here is passion and drive to represent your country. I am unsure if that passion and drive and that want to play for the West Indies-ish kind of drive exists still among some of these players. I mean, you will see it among some of these guys. Nicholas Pooran made a post a few days ago saying that he's sleeping in his West Indies kit because he is accustomed to it now, and he's very passionate. And when he's growing up, his dream was to play for West Indies, and his results showed His results showed it in the qualifiers. He scored 2 centuries. He was excellent in the field. He was a mere leader by himself. But what about the other players? Jason Holder as well, one of those players. He had a tough tournament, but he's one of those players that are quite passionate. And some of the others as well. But what about the upcoming players? Are they really passionate to play for the West Indies? Now, I know I strayed a bit away from your question about how can we find that solution. But my thing is, I am also looking for that solution.
I mean, I kind of get what you're saying because, it's not like a quick fix. You can't say, okay, let's just do this differently and it works. Clearly, it's a problem it's been going on for a long time.
It's not. We've changed coaches, Andre. We've changed Cricket West Indies presidents. We've changed management teams. We've changed media officers. You name it. We've changed uniforms. It's so bad that we can't even get a title sponsor for the West Indies team.
Oh, wow. That's actually something I didn't know. So this is off topic. I didn't have this in the initial questions, but they naturally come up. In the past, unfortunately, a long time ago for myself, when I was growing up, even I understood, even for not just with cricket, but with football, there was you mentioned the pride and the passion. You saw it in the past. You don't have to be a massive expert to know this. There was a pride just thinking that you could possibly play at the national level, even West Indies as well. And is it from a commercial perspective? Because as you know, I work in and around the CPL. We work in this arena. Is it that while we love it and franchise cricket is very popular and very attractive, it brings in new fans. I know fans that didn't really care too much about cricket in Trinidad and Tobago, but they started to pay attention from the commercialized side of it. Do you think that the financial gains from playing like in the CPL and the IPL has taken away from the glamour and the desire to be a West Indian cricketer?
I think it has some impact on that. Yes, I think it does. But because take nothing away, these men are full-time cricketers. It's their profession. So while we are talking about passion and drive and so on, and looking for that solution, we also need to understand that these players are only professional sportsmen for a short space of time, maybe 5 to 10 years.
Correct.
That's their real prime. And if they are dedicating their life towards, or the better part of their life to sport, then they should also, this is their job. Just like myself, if I'm getting a commentary job outside of Trinidad and Tobago, I will take it. So similar to that, if they are getting a job or an opportunity to play in a new franchise competition that is offering thousands of dollars in US currency, then we also need to understand that they have investments to make in their future as well. They're not going to be sportsmen and women forever. The actual sportsman's lifetime for cricket and for other sports as well is maybe 15 years, if that much. Now take that into consideration, where the regular person works 33 to 34 years and they gather their wealth and their assets and so on. These people have to do it in almost quarter or half of the time. So we need to understand from their side as well. While we may be coming down on them for not being passionate or not driving themselves to represent the West Indies and using franchise cricket as a possible excuse for it, we need to understand their side as well. But yes, I agree with your point that these franchise competitions, they do have a part to play because it takes a tad bit away from the passion and the drive and the energy and the focus that's there for a West Indian cricketer. Now, here we come about with another topic, Andre. How come the Australians can do it? How come the South Africans can do it?
Yeah.
How come the English players can do it? They can play the English T20 Blast and the Indian Premier League, and some of them come across to the CPL. Not much CPL this year, but some of them play the biggest franchise T20s in the world, and they can switch on and switch off like that. It's all about their mental ability to adapt to the different situations. And I think that's the major difference with teams that are ranked 1 to 5 in the one-day international rankings versus the West Indies, who are in the bottom half of the international rankings.
Yes, it's scary. And, folks, you could let us know what you think in the comment section below, because we know everyone is upset about this, and we've been upset a while now, but still, now the reality has hit. We are not going to be at the World Cup. We lost against teams that, respectfully, I will say, I don't like to use that term, but, quote unquote, in the past, we would have definitely defeated. And it raises another question. But before I do that, before we go, because, we have our things to do, and we'll definitely have another discussion. But in the comment section below, let me know what you think. What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think the West Indies should do now moving forward? Should they do a reset and so on, folks? Let us know what you think in the comment section below. But one last question before I go, Sachin. It's we spoke about the franchise. We spoke about what do they do now. We spoke about the problems with selection and so on. But the fact is, this is something that we've seen coming for a long time. We've seen it coming for a long time, and we address the issues of in football it's like club versus country. But then you literally read my mind with a question: how come other countries are able to do it? And it really raises a very disturbing question, and maybe a hard question that maybe a lot of people are afraid to ask. Because I know some of these guys as well. In terms of our talent pool right now, I mean, this is like a real assessment. Is it that the talent is there, but the overall process of getting the talent pool to the elite levels, which is West Indies, is it that we are overestimating the talent, or is the talent there and we're just not utilizing it properly?
Goes back to my point, Andrea, of the politics in cricket. The talent is there, but there are some of them lots of them are falling through the cracks, and are not being caught before they fall through those cracks. Also, if you look at the talent pool currently, there isn't much. I mean, as compared to India, they have 1 billion people. The West Indies, maybe 100 million people, if that much. So I think not even 100 million, less than 100 million. So if you look at that contrast, it's a major difference. India, a whole talent pool to pick from. The West Indies, not much to choose from. So I think that in itself is a bit of an inequity. But in terms of the talent pool, the pool is half full right now. There isn't much you can go to if you want to take some of the passionate fans' advice and get rid of the entire team. There isn't much to go to.
Right.
Release them and pick who.
Yes.
Do we go with the full under 19 team? Do we go with an over 40 team? Do we go with a under 17 team, or a mixture of all of them? Chris Gayle said recently that he's never retired from cricket. He's still open to playing for the West Indies. I'm not too sure how much people will like to see the Rastafarian universe force back in the West Indies colours.
Yeah.
He had his chance. He had his reprieve, his lifeline of success, I would like to say, a few years ago. But I think it's about time we need to start looking forward. Don't look back. People are saying bring back Narayan and Pollard and Andre Russell and so on. The talks of Shivran Hetmeyer being victimized, etc. Now, all of those topics are for another time. But again, can we really find that solution urgently? It's not a quick fix. It's a fix that needs to be planted now. And the success of that fix will happen maybe about 7 or 8 years to come. So West Indian fans, be prepared to be heartbroken for a few more years before we start seeing success. And let me remind you, Carl Hooper said before the start of this tournament that the West Indies is at a low point, but we are not at the lowest. And at the end of this qualification stage, we will see how much lower the West Indies team can get.
And you read my mind with my next question. So I guess because we work in the same field, we think alike. I was basically addressed my question before I even asked it, because that's what I really wanted to know, from a no BS assessment of the situation about where we stand. And in all sports, when you attain success, I have seen sometimes there is an inability to develop and have continuity. And some teams and organizations tend to hold on to all their players a little bit longer than they should. And that transition from a successful team to another successful team consistently is always a very difficult thing. And we are seeing it now. Clearly, with the West Indies, that is an issue. We are going back to certain players. We have players that probably, again, thrown into the mix too young. And we haven't found that mix. And I will always say this in any sporting project, especially if you're struggling and trying to rebuild, there is no quick fix. And I think, as you rightfully said from Carl Hooper, a legend himself, that time, I think patience. Now, West Indies has that name and they want the immediate results. People expect them to win. But I think, truthfully, as you rightfully said, this is something that's going to take time and possibly maybe 2 or 3 cycles. We'd love to get in one cycle, but, maybe I would say maybe 5 to 7 years, maybe even more to really develop and get back to where we are and then deal with it, So that is my general thoughts. I don't know if you have any final words you want to let me know.
I just want to make one further point. People are saying Scotland and Netherlands are the two biggest defeats West Indies has ever faced. Probably in history, yes, they are right. I mean, scoring 374 against Netherlands, anybody thought that, hey, the West Indies would have gone on to win that game quite easily. Now, against the Scottish team, they did halfway that. They got to 181 runs. And a few years ago, you'd have said, hey, 181, they're going to dismiss Scotland for 85, under 100. But let me tell you the difference, Andre. Netherlands, Ireland, Scotland, United Arab Emirates, Oman, Nepal, all these lower level ranked teams, associate teams in inverted commas, they have done the right things. And when I say they've done the right things, they've been on the receiving end for more than a decade of, in local language, plenty licks. They've been facing lots of defeats every series that they face: Australia, England, West Indies, South Africa, India, etc. They've been obliterated on many levels, more levels than none. But what have they done? They've learned from those defeats, and they're now coming to a World Cup qualifier, chasing down huge totals, bowling once great teams down for less than 250 over game, and creating cardiac arresting, entertaining matches. This is what sport is about. It's no longer sport for playing sake. It's sport entertainment. And that's what all the fans get involved for. You have betting all around the world. You have reactions. You have fans wearing their hearts on their sleeves and crying when wins happen and crying when games are lost. So it's about that passion and that drive and sport entertainment. These lower level ranked teams are creating the entertainment factor that these bigger teams have been doing. So I think the issue lies where the West Indies team have not been learning from their failures and their mistakes. And that's a big problem, because the lower level teams, like I mentioned earlier, they have done their homework. They have been beaten and battered for many, many years. And now they are being the ones doing the beating and battering.
Right. And essentially, you're saying that the playing field is no longer, there's no disparity.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
absolutely not. You can't go into a game and saying, Ireland is the underdog, or Scotland is the underdog. In 2018, at the same one-day international, Scotland defeated England. Not in the same competition, but Scotland defeated England. The mighty Three Lions, they defeated them. And now they defeated the once mighty West Indians.
Yeah. And it goes to show, like in all sports, football as well. It's something that even though it's a totally different field, the application and the preparation and the sophistication is no longer, associated with quote unquote big teams. I myself, I'm an analyst, and I could tell you I've seen quote unquote smaller nations prepare now, because now the coaches are more educated. Now they are investing in their development programs, and that complacency that was there. Clearly, it's a wake-up call. You saw it, even in the recent Football World Cup, and now we're seeing it, obviously, a while now, the West Indies and other big teams constantly having to take a look at themselves and say, hey, we have to do things. And I guess that's why we're having this discussion, because everybody, are sitting down, and probably you have the fans who are emotional. I mean, we are fans as well. But, then you have to have the decision makers. I think people are now having to face that reality. And maybe, this is me having the glass half full. This is probably the slap in the face we needed, versus us maybe scraping through and going to the World Cup and maybe papering over the cracks. And then, we'll always be like, well, we'll sort it out. It will eventually sort itself out. Maybe this is this cold slap to the face that everybody needed to say, okay, listen, we need to check ourselves. We are not in a good place. And
I just thought, sorry to interrupt you, Andre. I just thought of a possible solution that could have a quick fix.
Yeah.
Just like the FIFA Normalization Committee in Trinidad, who had a great impact over the last 2 years or so. And we are seeing the slight improvement in football in Trinidad and Tobago, and of course, national team going to the Gold Cup, etc. But I am thinking maybe if you put a businessman or a group of businessmen in charge of the Cricket West Indies board, they might be able to manage the assets well. Now, the assets we're talking about here are the athletes, the players, the managers, the coaches, etc. they might be able to manage much better than the ones that they have now. Because as successful businessmen, they know how much risk to take and when to take those risks.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think that could be a possibility. I'm no expert in the field of business. I have some knowledge in the field of business as well. But I think based on recent history, that this could be a possible solution to assist in the improvement and eventual success of West Indies.
Yes, yes. And what we could all agree on as we end things off is that something needs to change.
Oh, yes, for
Clearly,
sure.
what is being done right now isn't working. And,
Nope.
hopefully the powers that be and everybody involved eventually just kind of get it together and start making some good decisions. And, it is what it is. We could all disagree on the solution or maybe the approach, but we are now, I think everybody now will have to unanimously agree, even if they were skeptical before, that what we are doing and have been doing for a long time hasn't been working. And it almost seems like it was ad hoc. We'll just let our big players come in and rescue us when the time comes. And I think cricket and sport in general has evolved beyond that. You have to have the preparation at all levels. So, folks, I would love to talk about this for hours. Sachin and I, we always talk about this. When there's a cricket issue, he's one of the first men I speak to. So before you go, folks, be sure to like, subscribe, comment in the comment section below. Let us know what you think. I'll put information on how you could check out Sachin's social media and his content as well. And of course, you could take a look at him on TTT doing his thing.
Hey, thanks for that. I like that very much.
Yes.
6:30 p.m. weekdays, Monday to Friday.
Yes. Check him out. Sachin is the man. And, folks, be sure to check us out on excvmedia.com, where Sachin also contributes to some of our content and gives us his thoughts on, the CPL and things like that. We'll have all his latest post will be up shortly. So check that out on excvmedia.com. Don't forget, like I said, I'm going to say it repeatedly, like, subscribe, share, and comment. We really want to hear what you have to say. So with that being said, Sachin, as always, it's an absolute pleasure. And we'll definitely be having some more discussions about this and elaborate more on the EXCV podcast.
For sure, brother. Thank you very much for having me. It's a joy to be on the show. Not a joy to talk about West Indies cricket, though, but a joy to be here to discuss possible solutions. And I think that's what we need to do. Come together as fans and offer some possible solutions to the failures that have been happening. Because if we don't offer that solution, then we also become part of the problem.
Yes. So as always, Sachin, it's a pleasure. And folks, thank you for joining us.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.